The Tech Educator Podcast is a proud supporter and member of the Education Podcasting Network. Check out edupodcastnetwork.com today for your favorite educational podcasts.
Welcome to the Tech Educator Podcast. If you are looking to share with your students the best in educational technology, this is the podcast for you. Helping you bring out your passions to inspire your students. Live Sunday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern, exclusively on TeacherCast.tv. With your hosts, Jeff Bradbury, Sam Patterson, David Saunders, Jennifer Judkins, Josh Gauthier, Jennifer Scheffer, Jeff Herb, and Waka Patui.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tech Educator Podcast, your home for live professional development every single Sunday night at 7 o'clock Eastern. Tonight, we're talking all about Makerspaces, how to create them, and how to do STEM properly in your school district. We have a great guest with us today. On the show is Meredith Martin, and she's going to be sharing with us some of the great things that she's doing, as she is truly the Makerspace queen in New Jersey. Sam, how are you today? You're doing some pretty interesting things over there in California. What are you setting up for us today?
Well, I'm doing well today. Let me go through what am I setting up? Well, I want to share with you guys today some of the work I've been doing this weekend with the 3D printer, where you can actually change the filament and get different colors to come out and layer those colors. And if you're doing something like a topographical map, talk a little bit more about that later. And I found the Eye of Ra. So
does that mean you're leaving us to go to the desert with a big spear?
Yes, I often try to get you guys to go back to the desert with me, and next time we go, the llamas and I are going to find the Well of Souls.
Ah, so you're using the spear to let the llamas know where you are.
Sure, let's go with that.
Excellent. Jennifer Judkins, how are you today?
Great. Good to see you guys tonight.
It is so good to see you. How are things up there in Massachusetts? Is there any...
Careful. Proceed carefully.
How was the blizzard? Let's start with there. How was the blizzard?
We are happy to report that we got no snow.
Wow. So everything was good this weekend for you?
Not exactly.
Oh.
We are in mourning, as you know, over the Patriots, but we will not speak of it any longer, Jeff.
No. Of course not.
That's where David Saunders is. Okay, he's must be drowning his sorrows somewhere. Sorry.
Absolutely. I want to bring on Meredith Martin. Meredith, how are you today? Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for being here.
No problem. I'm doing well and enjoying Blizzard Central here in New Jersey.
I'm so glad that you're here. I know in North Jersey, with all capital letters, I think we got close to like 16 or 18 inches. It was just so deep. I almost lost the babies when they were in the snow today. How does everything down in your way now we're South Jersey? That is not funny when I say lost the babies. I know you refer to my children as larvae,
Sure it is.
but how did you make out with the storm?
Oh, we got probably close to 18 to 24 inches. It was coming down pretty hard and fast. We did lose the Chihuahua in the snow for a little while. That was kind of fun.
That's why you need a staff of raw.
Yeah, we all survived.
Nice. We are here live as we are every single Sunday night on TeacherCast.tv. We have a great live audience. Want to give a big shout out to some of the people that have already started to stop in. Rob is here. Craig is here. Eric is here. Jennifer is here. There's, of course, several great ways that you can contact and be a part of our show. We love it when you reach out to us on Twitter at TeacherCast. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. And, of course, email us at feedback@teachercast.net. And speaking of subscribing to us and getting us in, this week is a very special week. We have actually just been accepted into the iTunes program to have a artists page. So as of before, when you go to teachercast.net/iTunes, it was only taking you to our live feed for all of our shows. Hopefully in the next 24 to 48 hours or so, when you go to teachercast.net/iTunes, you're going to be taken to a full TeacherCast page where you can look at all of our shows and subscribe to the ones that you like and the ones that you love. So lots of great stuff going on there. Sam, we're talking all about STEM education and makerspaces today. Let me just throw this at you. Why is it important that students are right now moving into that STEM movement? Why? What is the big deal here?
Well, STEM education is really about the fact that we have much more accessible means of production to do really cool engineering things in class. It used to be very difficult to create something in class unless you, say, went down the hall to the wood shop. Wait, in fact, it used to be really easy to do things like STEM education because we had all of these great vehicles in school. We had art class, we had wood shop, we had home ec, we had all of these modes of essentially creative expression for students that were disguised as vocational training. And now that we've gotten rid of all of those, all we have left are super long blocks of reading and math, and it stinks. Oh, it bores the students beyond what anyone could reasonably expect. Even though teachers work really, really hard to come up with super engaging things for 24 kids to do all at the same time. And STEM education is kind of a refocus on the question, what if we had kids do things? And I think that's why makerspaces and flexible learning spaces and STEM education is so incredibly important, because it gives teachers an opportunity to have students do things and make things and figure things out in class in the name of learning.
Well, when we're looking at this, Meredith and I, you and I have talked about this a lot. You have this way of creating an entire makerspace for an entire school district with about $15 in a dollar store. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing these days. And I know you've got this thing called Mary's Musical Magical Maker. What is it called again?
Mary's Mobile Makerspace.
And it's been all around.
Mobile Makerspace goes with me to it goes around to conferences and workshops, so I can kind of share the idea of makerspaces with people and get more people excited about them. And I think one of the biggest questions I hear from people is, well, what type of equipment do I need to buy for the makerspace or the STEM lab or whatever? And people feel like they need to purchase high-end equipment, expensive 3D printers and scanners. They need to go out and buy robots. They need to buy the Lego kits. And yes, those are awesome. And if you can get them, definitely. But especially when you're starting out, money can be tight. And I found that you don't need to spend a ton of money to have a good makerspace. All you need is a little creativity. And a lot of the activities that I focus on with my students use what I call dollar store STEM. We have 3D printers in my building. We have some Little Bits electronics kits. We've got Sphero robots and a couple other fun things that I bring in. But what I like about doing the dollar store STEM, number one, it's great for my mostly non-existent budget at work. But number two, using those are materials that my students can easily get access to. 99% of my students are not going to go out and have their parents buy them a $1,000 3D printer. They're not going to be able to afford to go out and buy a robotics kit. But they can go to the dollar store or use materials around the house, recyclables, and be able to do many of the activities that we've done in school at home without having to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It makes it a lot more accessible to the students and gives them a chance to expand on what they do in the class once they do get home.
So when we're looking at dollar store stuff, Meredith, what are we talking about here? I mean, I've seen you walk into the dollar store and preparing for an ed camp, like $100 is all you need. What does a dollar store item look like? And when you go in there, what's on your mind? Like, where are you shopping in these areas?
I go in with an open mind. I love the Dollar Trees in our area. To me, they seem to have a great selection of stuff. And the nice thing about the dollar stores in general is that you never know from week to week what you're going to find there, because they have a lot of different items coming in on a regular basis. So I go in and I'm thinking, okay, I want to do something fun with the kids. Let me wander through. And the first time I go through and I just browse the shelves. What looks interesting? Sometimes I'll go in with a set shopping list if I know I'm doing a particular activity. One of the favorites for the kids, and I have to say for grown-ups as well at workshops, are the craft stick catapults. All you need for those are popsicle sticks, rubber bands, a plastic spoon, and a bunch of marshmallows to launch at people. And they go nuts for those. And all of those are materials I can get at the dollar store. But other times I go in and I'm just like, let me go see what there is, and I'll find something that catches my eye and go, I wonder what I can do with this. And honestly, I think that's where most of my best projects come from, is just me finding something new in the dollar store and going, oh, I bet we could do something interesting with this. And then I'll buy a bunch of it, come back to the lab, and start poking around and seeing what I can come up with. And, it's great. We've had a ton of fun that way.
Well, speaking about these ideas, I'm in the middle of right now helping our school district to plan out our STEM future. And I went online and started searching for ideas to use in the class. And I noticed you've got some pretty awesome things on your Pinterest board. And I want you to talk a little bit about what you're doing there on Pinterest and what you're pinning and where they can find you for that, because you have just created an amazing resource of what to do, where is it, and how is it. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, if you're not on Pinterest, run away while you still can. Once you get sucked into it, there's no escape. It really is the digital hoarder's dream. I don't so much collect physical items anymore as collecting digital items. And there are so many great ideas out there on Pinterest for STEM and education in general. I started out thinking, I'll browse a little. I started with the usual, let's pin a couple recipes and things. And next thing I know, I've got more education-based boards than anything else. And my largest one has to be my STEM and STEAM Makerspace type board, where I just store everything I come across. It's funny because I look back through it, and as I go through, I can tell when I'm looking for a specific lesson that I'm doing, because all of a sudden, you'll start with random, just things I find as I browse through Pinterest, and all of a sudden there will be a chunk of pins on a particular topic, like the digestive system, or something to do with preschool STEM, and I'll just have big chunks of particular topics. And it's just been a great way for me to store everything that I'm finding out there. Some of them I use right away. Some of them I save for later and go, this would be cool if I have a chance to get to it. And some things are, I'm probably not going to use this, but I know I have a lot of people that I converse with at conferences, online, on Twitter, and random people who follow my Pinterest boards, and they might find those useful even if it's not something I'm going to be able to use in my particular situation. So it's basically my way of being a digital hoarder and saving everything I could possibly use in a STEM makerspace type classroom.
Jen, let me bring you in here. As a tech coach in a school district, you have the opportunity to work with teachers of all grade levels and students of all grade levels. Have you had much experience bringing in STEM projects, and if so, what's it been like for teachers who are like, hey, I want you to talk about Google, and now you're talking about marshmallows? Like, what experiences have you had with STEM education?
Well, quite a bit, because before I came into a tech coaching role, I was a science teacher. So it's actually my favorite thing to talk about with teachers. But found a lot of opportunities this year in particular as we've been moving to the next generation science standards. That's created a wonderful opening for me to have conversations, particularly at the elementary level, where teachers are really, working hard to feel comfortable with a lot of times topic areas like physical science that are not naturally things that they feel really confident with. So it's been great. I've actually been, one of my major projects this year has been to design elementary science units, and that's something where I can bring in some hands-on activities but also some technology. And teachers are very open to it because it doesn't feel like something extra, because they're really needing some content to be covered and addressing these new standards, which for them is something that they really appreciate the help with.
Well, let's kind of go back to the beginning here, everybody. When we're looking at STEM education, Meredith is talking dollar store. Jen's talking about the science things too. I know, Sam, you've got a lot of extra things as you're instructing kids. Where is the best place to find the resources for this? And when I say resources, I mean cash. Are we as STEM teachers required to dip into our own pockets and go to the dollar store every day? Or what is the best way to say, look, if you want me to do STEM, we got to get some help here?
Well, anytime you're doing lab-based science education, there is a cost per student. And that's something that if you're going to be able to do this kind of thing, you have to be able to find. Now, schools typically have money. One of the things that STEM has been able to do in some situations is take money that had previously gone to, say, static science curriculum and use that in these more hands-on ways. But it's a challenge when you're trying to design responsive lessons that do this kind of work also. And the shorter your turnaround time, the more it ends up costing you. I mean, the best thing you can do is figure out what your standard go-to supplies are going to be and try to get those in bulk somewhere. And, really watch for, the dollar store is great, but even, the dollar store, if you aren't doing, group organization and planning, can get pretty expensive pretty fast.
So like, how do we do this? I mean, do we get purchase orders? Do we get petty cash? What's been the general method, Meredith, for you?
Well, I think it's going to vary from district to district. My STEM program kind of was created on, I hesitate to say on a whim because that sounds like no planning went into it, but it was very unexpected when they agreed to let me pilot the STEM program 2 years ago. And so I didn't have a set budget. What we did agree to was that the curriculum department, the curriculum supervisor, would reimburse me for money spent at the dollar store and other places for the STEM program. And that this year, as we finish up this year, we're going to be talking about getting a set budget for the STEM lab for the future, so that it's not me running out, purchasing items on my own, submitting receipts, and then, getting the money back eventually. At this point, it's a lot of out of pocket for me because I want to get this program up and running, and I'm lucky to have a district willing to, reimburse me for items like that. But it's much easier if you can have a budget, no matter how big or small, to be able to say, okay, I know I have this amount of money set aside that I can use to go towards my STEM, my Makerspace program, whatever you want to call it, and know that you can start then planning lessons based on the knowledge that you have this money here to be able to go out and get supplies that you need.
Sam, we have a couple of questions here in our audience. I think the first question is, what are we looking at here? You set up a 3D printer. Tell us a little bit about the 3D printer and what are you building here as our show goes on?
Oh, that is, I'm making these little TeacherCast logos,
Nice.
hockey pucks. The technical term I'm comfortable with is gigaw. So if you look that up, the definition holds. So
is that the Urban Dictionary?
Never. Urban Dictionary. Ever. They have a board game now. Some friends gave it to me. I'm so excited I haven't opened it yet. Yeah, so the 3D printer is a Polar 3D printer. Our school bought 6 of them, and we're using them after school in an innovation club and finding different opportunities to bring them into classes. What I've been trying to teach myself how to do is to create a multicolor print with them, which is simple. All you have to do is pay close attention to what it's doing, stop it, change the color of the filament, and start it up again.
And when you say stop it, is that application based, or is there a pause button on the printer?
It's all web application. There's no controls anywhere on these printers, which is totally unnerving for me because I grew up with toasters and stuff that have knobs and dials. But you just get on a website and you click stop or start, and it stops or it starts.
Nice. Meredith, do you have any 3D printer recommendations? I know a lot of people on Twitter I'm seeing, what's good, what's bad, what do I look for, price, is this get what you pay for? Talk to us about 3D printers.
Oh gosh, there's a wide variety out there, and the prices vary insanely from a few $100s to tens of thousands of dollars based on the type of printer, the size of printer, and things like that. I think what most people in school districts and for desktop 3D printing personally, you're looking at the basic PLA printers. PLA is a type of plastic that they use. Some of them also print in ABS plastic, and there's a lot of other types of filaments out there that 3D printers can use. I have, trying to think, I've got 2 personal ones at the moment, plus a third one hopefully arriving tomorrow if the snow did not slow down the transport of it. I have my first one, which is a FlashForge Dreamer. I absolutely love that. That is my workhorse of 3D printers. It's about, I want to say it's about $1,200 on Amazon with free 2-day shipping if you're a Prime member. It is a fully enclosed dual extruder. So Sam was talking about the Polar where you stop it, you put in a new filament, and you start it again. With a dual extruder, it has basically 2 print heads, and you can run 2 different types of filament at once and be able to print a multicolored object without stopping. Because it's enclosed, it can also print in multiple types of filament, not just the PLA. And I have run that thing like crazy. I had to print about 400 student projects on it last year when my school printer died unexpectedly. And I had my alarm set every 3 hours to wake me up and start a new print job on it. And that thing ran nonstop for a week so I could get my student projects printed, and it never gave me any problems. My second printer is a Polar.
Endorsement.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean that baby. You can beat the snot out of that thing, and it keeps going.
Well, when we're looking at this, Sam, is this hot? Can you put your finger on it as soon as it comes out, or is this dangerous for little kids?
The only part of that operation that's hot is the very tip. It's at about 180 degrees Celsius, and you don't want to touch it immediately after it comes out. Give it 15 seconds, and it's cool.
So what's keeping it on the platform? Do you put grease on the bottom?
This is high science, right? This is why this is more than just messing around and having fun with plastic. What holds it to the platform, which is a mirror, is hairspray.
Aquanet, baby, Aquanet.
Is that literally part of the directions?
Not only is it part of the directions, here I'll show you something. This is impressive. I'll be right back.
This was my favorite part when I got my Polar 3D. I love my little Polar printer, and when I opened up the packaging, I almost fell over laughing.
For those of you listening to the show, what I'm holding up is the packaging that the 3D printer ships in. There are 3 components. One is L-shaped, and that's where the main body of the 3D printer is held. The other is circular, and that's where the base of the 3D printer goes. And the other one is shaped like a bottle of Aquanet, because that's where the bottle of Aquanet ships with the printer. This is not a hack. This is the instructions.
That is
They
awesome.
actually ship it with a can of Aquanet hairspray. It's awesome. I love it.
Which
I would
cool.
assume would actually make it a lot harder to ship. I mean, like aerosols but.
So it is brand specific, Sam, is what you're saying.
Definitely. Not only brand specific, it's got to be the unscented extra hold. Now, if you want, there's a lot of people out there doing this technology work, right? But the number of my fellow middle-aged men, possibly with thinning or no hair, who I've seen posting about having to go buy Aquanet for their 3D printers, and how that inevitably leads to a really awkward social conversation with the cashier at the pharmacy. I love that. When you were talking about having to set your alarm every 3 hours to do the 3D printers, and to get the student workout. I think that was what I was like most afraid of when my school's like, oh, we should 3D print, and I'd read all of these pieces, and even Kevin Jarrett's recent piece for Edutopia had a line in there: "Is 3D printers, are 3D printers for me?" And he's like, "That depends. Are you willing to give up your life to dedicate to these, the production of these little pieces of plastic? If so, yes, jump in. It's super fun." Um,
Life?
but
What life? I don't
what
have a life.
I have to clear the print bed. So you said you had your Flash Forge, which sounds amazing, right? I'd love to have a whole bunch of those.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Polar.
Yep, I have my Polar. I'm a Polar 3D ambassador, and I get to play with the Polar 3D printer and tell people all about it and help people come up with lesson ideas to use with it. And that's been a great little printer. And then my one that's due in tomorrow is a new one. It's the PrinterBot Play, which was just featured in Make Magazine in their 3D printer review. That one runs about $400, and I think the Polar for educators is what, $500-600 for educators.
Yeah, it's somewhere right in there, and they have a lab pack that was what my school went with, and I know some people have gotten a number of different 3D printers at our school. I realized I don't really. We got a DaVinci 1.0 last year for like $500, and after having replaced the heated print bed once and the extruder once, and finally found an app that'll help me calibrate the print bed, I like it. Up until then, I was just like, wow, 3D printers are horrible, and that was the only thing I learned from buying that 3D printer. But the Polars are really, like, the company's really focused on education, and what I love is the body is open, so my kindergarten kids can like walk right up to them and watch them working. And that's a powerful part of it for me. And I didn't want to learn more than one printer thing, really. And we don't need like my whole thing was I'm not out to create perfect gigas. I want kids to have access to 3D printing.
So clearly there's a lot of different
kids
options.
Are fascinated by them.
Clearly there's a lot of different options out there for 3D printing. I want to change the subject just a little bit and talk about spaces. Quite often in times an administrator might come to you and say, how much does it cost to build a makerspace? And, Meredith might laugh at you and say, oh, $50 in a dollar store. And then Sam might say, hey, look at this 3-level room that I'm designing with
$10 million.
Right. So let me, let me throw the question out, then I'll get out of the way. But Meredith just created an amazing room for Makerspaces, and Sam just created an amazing room for Makerspaces. Jen, just quick, have you done anything with Makerspaces in your room or as building a STEM lab, Jen?
Yeah, we have 2 pilot Makerspaces in our district this year, one at the elementary level and one at the high school, and they're both in the media centers at our schools. We didn't construct a new space, and the money we used was to purchase materials to go into the space. So we took what used to be, one was the office that the librarian never used because she was always in the media center proper, and the other one was previously a library classroom that just had desks and chairs in it.
And it seems like a lot of times right now the library is becoming the STEM lab. And, I look at these individuals who went from not long ago librarians, now they're media center specialists, now they're STEM lab technicians. It seems like these job descriptions are going forward. But let me just throw the question out. What is a makerspace? What does a makerspace look like? What can or what should you budget for? And I even want to wrap in the question of training your teachers or training your media specialists. There's a lot of topics, but Meredith, I'll let you lead the way here for the next couple minutes.
Good question. In terms of spaces, you can create a makerspace, a STEM lab, whatever, in any size space you have. My makerspace is basically a converted computer lab. When we went one-to-one with our students, I said, you know what, let's not waste this space. Let's turn it into the STEM lab / makerspace area. And we were lucky enough to have the space to do so. And really all the changes I made was grabbing some paint, and the art teacher and I spent some time decorating, and then hitting everybody else in the district up for things like, ooh, I need shelves, I need cabinets. Libraries, media centers, they do tend to become real great places to host a makerspace, because usually pretty much every class goes through them at some point during the week. And you can usually find some space. They usually have better tables for it, as opposed to singular desks that you find in classrooms. And there's a lot of great ways to kind of pull in literature and stories along with makerspaces as well. When it comes to training, that's a whole different kettle of fish. I do agree that we need to kind of become jack of all trades these days, not just specialize in any one thing. For instance, I started out as a first grade teacher, and now I do a little bit of everything in the district. But most of what you need, I think, is to have an open mind, to have some creativity, to be willing to try something and have it fail and go, okay, that didn't work, let's try something new, instead of stressing out over it and panicking that, oh my gosh, something didn't work the first time. And I think you also need to be willing to let the kids take the lead with a lot of it. I learned so much from my students in my STEM lab, and they be part of the idea behind it is to let your students get ownership of their learning, to see why they're learning the topics and the subjects that they are. So let the kids dive in and do some of the training as well. They can be your best resource sometimes.
Sam, tell us a little bit about the space you're sitting in.
Well, I was lucky that I joined this school when they were going one-to-one in the elementary. And similar story, they had already gone one-to-one in the middle school, and they had these 2 dedicated computer labs, and there wasn't much that they were good for other than teaching in horribly backward ways. Like, they were the embodiment of everything that one-to-one has allowed us to stop doing. So now I have 2 classrooms, and one's called the Design Studio and the other is the Design Lab. Right now I'm sitting in the Design Lab, and it has the 3D printers, the robots, a lot of the storage, the sewing machines live in here, all of the fabric notions and puffballs and whatever we might need for puppet building and sewing live in here. And there's about 4 shelves of storage, which we have just white bins. And right now there are Sphero racetracks that are stored, there are Lego projects that are stored, there are puppets that are in the middle of being built that are stored, because when you read about what makerspaces need, place for students to keep stuff is really important, because you want them to be able to start a project and pick up on it later. In the next room, the Design Studio, we have it set up for green screen filming with a roll-down green screen, and there's also 14 Raspberry Pi workstations set up, and I think by next year we'll have that increased to probably 25 Raspberry Pi workstations. But all of the furniture is on wheels, and between these 2 rooms we only have 25 chairs. We're trying to create as much of a open floor space as possible while still using as much of the room actively as we can.
Jen, can you talk to us a little bit about the process that you're going in? You said you have 2 rooms that you're in the process of putting together. Jen is paused at the moment.
Sorry, phone call.
That's okay. Jen, tell us a little bit about the process that you're going through with your rooms.
Yeah, so we kind of thought in terms of, I understand people's question because everyone's trying to figure out, well, how do you even begin? And so for us, we started thinking in terms of stations. Our spaces were created with the idea in mind that we can kind of group certain activities together. And so we have kind of like a 3D, like a printing station with the 3D printer and a silhouette cameo, which is just like a paper cutter. And then we have another station that's a deconstruction station at the high school level for kids to take apart objects, different electronics, and then we also have an electronic station with little bits and makey-makeys, stuff like that. At the elementary level, and we have some robotics as well, Lego robotics and Sphero and such. But at the elementary level, it's much more things like Legos and Kinects and, so like construction stations and things that are very portable that can be brought into classrooms in bins during indoor recess and stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure that the maker space wasn't stuck in a room, but could be that the space was a place where kids could come in, but also that the objects that were in the maker space could be taken out and brought into classrooms. So we tried to design things in a modular way that was portable.
We have a couple of questions coming in here from the chat room here. Eric asks, how do you show the powers that be that there are results coming in from your class? I mean, how do you show that this is not just Sam plays with toys or, hey, let's check out these things?
First of all, you need to adjust your mindset. There doesn't have to be an either-or thing here. We can have both Sam plays with toys and good learning is happening. You don't have to choose between those two. Now I'll turn that over to the board for how do you share this?
The way I share it, I make the administration come in and watch, because so much of what we do in the lab doesn't result in graded activities. That's one thing I hate, is attaching a grade, because all of my students are doing different things at different levels. What I want the administration to see when they come in is that my kids are collaborating, that they're working together, that they're learning to be successful working in teams or with partners, that they can think for themselves and not just parrot something that they've learned back at you. I want them to see that my kids are understanding why they're learning what they're learning. I want them to see the innovation that my students are coming up with, the inquiry in the classroom. So many times we go off on tangents because we'll start a project and the kids will ask, well, why or how? And those are great conversations to have. The kids are engaged, they are learning, they are asking questions, they are coming up with their own answers. I find that what the administrators see when they come in is oftentimes it's less me directing the class as it is me sitting back and being a resource for the students. They are the ones directing a lot of the learning. I'm there to help out, to answer questions, to kind of point them in the right direction if they get stuck. And I think that says a whole lot about why Makerspaces and STEM can be so powerful in schools and for students.
Hey, Meredith, I want to make sure I'm saying this question the right way. Is a makerspace always a STEM lab?
Not necessarily. I think there's so much jargon out there. You've got STEM, you've got STEAM, you've got STREAM, you've got makerspaces, hackerspaces, fab labs, whatever the heck you want to call them. Yeah, in my mind, it's all hands-on learning, and that's basically all it boils down to. You can have different levels of that. I find that in general, when people talk about STEM, it's a little more formalized, that it tends to be a lot more highly focused on the curriculum. It can still be very open-ended, but it tends to tie in more, at least in my district, with what we're doing in the regular classrooms with the students. Whereas makerspaces in general tend to be very open-ended. They are less about curriculum and more about exploring and learning and asking questions and collaborating. With a makerspace, you come in going, I want to try something new today. I want to go hands-on. Maybe I'll find someone who can help me with this question that I've had or this project that I want to do. And they're very fluid type of spaces. You never know from one day to the next what you're going to find in a makerspace, whereas, like I said, STEM labs tend to be a little more structured and a little more formal. But in both of them, there are opportunities for crossover.
And what I've seen is that in some schools, there may be no room for, let's say, a makerspace for the sake of a makerspace because it's awesome. At times there are institutional leaderships that cannot appropriately value the awesome, and this is the bane of our existence. When that happens, there have been occasions where very ingenious teachers have figured out that those people who do not value the awesome do value STEM because it comes attached to the correct package of buzzwords. And under the auspices of STEM, we can create an opportunity for all kinds of awesome to happen while meeting all of their very specific STEM needs. So I think that's why, Jeff, you'll sometimes see this coincidence of STEM and Maker in that there are different parties that are very invested in each of these. And when you approach it thoughtfully, you can, create a flexible learning space that meets a lot of both of those needs.
Now, Meredith, as the makerspace guru here in New Jersey, I've seen you do some pretty amazing things with 3D printers, with marshmallows, with toothpicks, I've seen you at the teachers convention turn a 100 by 100 space into an amazing, amazing thing. I've never seen you once pick up a puppet. Should puppetry be in the STEM lab or in a makerspace?
Sure. I think what
Wrong
a lot
answer.
of people don't think of when they think of makerspaces. People tend to get so focused on the technical end of it, on technology, on the bigger items, the woodworking, the programming, the robotics. But makerspaces are for everything. You can include sewing, you can include crafts, you can include puppetry, you can include the visual arts. Everything has a space in makerspaces. Puppets are a great way for kids to express themselves. The kid who's not comfortable speaking, face-to-face with a teacher or with a classmate may be more willing to communicate if they have a puppet to kind of give them that little bit of distance. So it's the puppet talking, not them. They can create great movies and commercials and visual art using things like puppets.
And Meredith,
I'm all for it.
if they use puppets, the puppets are like a physical avatar, and then you can share those movies and still be in line with district policies.
Exactly.
Okay, so Meredith answered the question incorrectly. Jennifer, do puppets have a place in STEM education and makerspaces?
I thought Meredith did a fantastic job of answering that question.
She did.
I don't see that I could improve upon that, Jeff. I don't know that I can help you.
I'm sorry, but I have to.
We're a united front here, Jeff. You're not going to.
Shut
You're
down.
not going
You're lined up behind the puppet, Jeff.
I have to say, Jen, and this is no disrespect to anything, but I think that answer was a little bit wide right.
Okay. Keep talking about the Patriots, and I
didn't say anything
I
about
will
the
remember
Patriots.
you for this later.
I didn't say anything about the Patriots. Although I think that next week I'm going to get invited to present at a mysterious conference that doesn't exist and it's going to make me drive into the middle of Massachusetts for no reason. Sam, and I do mean this. It is nice to see Waka back. I would like to ask Waka a few questions about how his role in Makerspaces can be, because on one hand we're talking about being creative, and as you said, Waka is that blend between creating with food and creating with food. Waka, what do you think about what do you think about STEM education?
I love it most of the time, unless, I have to go shopping for it, and then, I got to get tin foil and noodles, and not those noodles. It's great. I love it.
Well, Waka, when you're going shopping at the dollar store, how do you hold the basket as you walk around the store?
Oh, I usually make people do it for me.
Ah. That's why you always carry an arm behind you?
Right. Obviously.
Now, what do you think about this 3D printer that's going on here? They're doing 3 orange circles.
Those are red. You need to correct the color on your screen.
Oh, okay. We'll have to change the Google Hangout and all of this stuff.
Yes. Fix Google. Get back to me.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that
I
up.
have to say,
What was that? Is there a way, I mean, we talk about app smashing here, guys, and I mean, is there a way to blend the digital with the physical here? I mean, what kind of activities can you do where maybe you build something and then you analyze it using a Google spreadsheet or a form, or how do we blend all of these things here? So, and a lot of people on the chat room are saying, how do you justify all this stuff if there's not an end grade to this when you're talking about curriculum and curriculum goals? Can you have a curriculum that doesn't include assessment?
Well, you have to decide what you're going to attach it to, what you're going to use to meet which goals, right? Every learning activity, what I love about being a K-5 tech integration specialist is I can walk in and we can hit social emotional learning goals, we can hit tech learning goals, we can hit NGSS standards, we can hit math standards, and that's just in the Go Noodle video in the first 3 minutes of class. There's all kinds of opportunities to reach learning goals and to assess and use these things. Is it going to be Makerspace? No, Makerspace may not be its own topic, right? But the question is, what kind of learning is going on there, and where do you value that learning? And that's, kind of where you can attach it to this. But, we are an educational community that is myopic over data, and it's just getting worse. Instead of data, we need to be studying people, and we need to be connecting with kids. And that will not be a comforting answer for your administrator who wants, to know the standard deviation between last year's scores and this year's scores. But
nice. We have a few more minutes.
One of the things I do.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I do in my lab with my students, while we don't grade, I do assess. There's a huge difference for me between assessing and grading. I have my students keep a reflection journal. When we're doing a project, we just started a big design process project in the lab this past week, and my students are keeping a journal, and each time they're in the lab, they are spending at least 5 or 10 minutes at the end of class jotting down, what did we do today? What did I accomplish? What did my team talk about? What ideas do I have for going forward? What questions did I come up with while I was doing this? How do I feel about what we've done so far and where we're going with this? And I think having something like that can be a way to assess without giving a specific grade, to be able to see, are the kids on task? Are they engaged? Are they learning? Are they questioning? Are they coming up with ideas? All of those are definitely accessible, but don't necessarily need to have a grade attached. And to piggyback on what Sam said, there are so many standards that tie in with what you're doing in STEM and Makerspaces, and you can go through and say, okay, we are hitting these particular standards, even if it's not a formal type lesson like you would see in my STEM lab. Even for the open-ended Makerspace stuff, there's so much that you can use to tie it in with the standards.
Well, and in the chat, Eric and a couple other people have been asking about this, and as you were talking, Meredith, I was thinking, if let's say cooperation or teamwork or ideation, any of these things could be what you decide to value. You can create an exit slip where it's on a Google form, and as the kids finish and check out, they know they have to do this exit slip and hit submit, and if they do that every time they come into the Makerspace, you're going to build a bank of data where students are self-reporting about whatever the central topic is you've decided you want to collect data on. If you have an admin that wants to see something, then decide what you value and find something to show them that. If they tell you they want to see something else, change tactic.
So we have a few more minutes left here in the show, and I want to end with a little game here for everybody. I want to do a little word association. There's some people in the chat room that are asking questions, and frankly, the same questions that I'm asking myself and asking you guys every day. So let's see if we can put a couple things down here on recording. I'm going to name something, and then I'd like you guys to just kind of riff for 30 seconds to a minute. What is it? What do you do with it? Make sense? Let's talk about little bits. What are little bits and what do you do with them?
Electronic prototyping. Kid-friendly for elementary, but complex enough for high school kids.
Yep. snap them together. They got magnets. You don't have to solder.
Excellent.
Right.
Lego education. What is out there in the world of Lego education these days?
Robotics, engineering, definitely.
Yeah, computer programming integration with the robotics for different grade levels. They have different platforms.
Math, lots of math. Even, with the younger kids, you can do area, you can do perimeter, you can do volume, tons of things you can do with math and Legos.
And
Lots of physical science, forces in motion.
is there more to Lego right now?
Oh yeah, I've got a 4th grade class using them for earthquakes.
Ooh.
Okay.
I keep hearing about Lego We Do kits. Any comments on those, or is that the only thing, or is there other Lego things to look out for?
No, that's for a younger crowd. We use those. I am very happy that we just figured out how to get them to work on Chromebooks, so that made my day last week.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. I thought they weren't ready for Chromebooks. Cool.
Yeah, there is a workaround that we were able to make work, so I'm happy. They have robotics for Mindstorms that are for older kids.
Okay.
I think they're great because kids are familiar with Legos. Everybody played with them as kids, and it's a very unintimidating platform for kids to approach and feel like, oh, I know how to do Legos, and so to tell them that you're adding a few pieces like motors and sensors doesn't intimidate the younger kids, which I like.
How about Spheros?
Well, I'm a big fan of the Spheros. Sorry about the light. Because they are a very quick setup robot. I can go into a class with 12 of them in a tote bag, drop them on the ground, wake them up, pull out the iPads, and they're ready to go. They work really well for a wide range of audiences. I used them this morning with my pre-K kids. We were doing a really simple draw and drive robot course, and I can also use them with 4th grade. Their STEM Fair project this year was to design a game that uses Sphero and the laws of energy and motion.
Somebody here on the chat mentions...
You can also do...
Go ahead.
You can also do programming with Spheros. They have apps where you can write code for them now. The new Sphero Spark, I believe, will really make programming accessible. And when I was at ISTE this past summer, I saw a gentleman painting with Spheros. He had a big canvas rolled out on the floor, dipping the Spheros in paint, and making beautiful works of art with them.
Nice.
Yeah, that was Nathan Stevens, and he does some pre-service teacher education. So imagine if when you were getting your teacher credential, you had to take the Paint with Robots class, right? That's totally awesome. We had the 1st graders do that this year, and I didn't warn the teachers ahead of time, and I was officially on probation in one of their classes for about a month after that. But we sure did have fun.
Nice. What
Oh
about,
gosh, yes.
keeping on the line of Spheros, talk to us about other robotics. I'm seeing things like dots and dashes and B-bots and things. What are these, and what do you use them for?
There's a lot of different robots out there, depending on what you're trying to get done. The B-bots are a really great, super simple robot that work really well in classrooms. I don't think they're really Makerspace or anything like that. They're so simple that it's really easy for teachers to create lessons around them. We also have the dash and dot robots here. The kids use those a lot after school. They've got launchers and xylophones and all kinds of really great hands-on coding opportunities that do a great job reinforcing the other coding lessons that I'm teaching them during tech class.
Ozobots. I use the Ozobots with my primary kids, kindergarten, 1st grade. They're little tiny robots that follow color codes, so you can draw a path for them using a marker, and by using red, blue, and green dots along with black, you can program them to do different things just using color codes. So it's a great introduction to programming logic and basic programming for little guys. They also have iPad apps that you can use and have them run and do all sorts of cool things on the surface of an iPad using those same color codes and paths for them.
How about Connects? We talked a little bit about Legos, but let's talk about Connects.
We do a giant Rube Goldberg project every year with the 8th graders, and the Connects are a very important part of that because it's a very versatile build system, and you can build a lot of different things with Connects. One of the greatest things that the 3D printers allow you to do is if you have, say, a bunch of Lego and a bunch of Connects, you can actually 3D print pieces that help you connect your Connects to your Lego. And
where do you find these? Is this
oh, awesome.
Connects.com, or you'll have to go to the Meredith's Pinterest board? Or
none of the official patented build companies will acknowledge this thing at all, but I think it's called the Universal Build Kit. I'll try to find the link and put it in the chat here.
Fantastic. I love how this is doing 2 colors now, Sam, for those of you watching the video.
Yes, we've switched to the white layer now.
Fantastic.
Or the digital paint drying, your choice.
We have another word here. What is a makey?
Now let me talk.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, a friend of mine has the best description or the best explanation of 3D printers imaginable. My friend Dan says that they are the result of a one-night stand between an inkjet printer and a glue gun.
Nice. I still hold that we really gave them a hard start by calling them printers. If we'd called them temperamental little sculpture machines, we would have appropriate expectations.
I like that. We need to start a petition to get the name changed.
Something Definitely. With an acronym. All right. Can I talk now, Meredith? What is a makey?
Makey.
Ooh, a makey. I love makey. They're these lovely little circuit boards that you can connect physical objects to control games, to control programs, to play music. You're limited pretty much just by your imagination with these. They're a lot of fun.
And very low price point, which makes them very accessible to many schools.
And do these things work together, or you're either, are you going to walk into a room and you're going to teach makeys one day, or you're going to teach Spheros? Can you build all this stuff together into one big lesson?
I've seen people use the Dash robot playing its xylophone connected to a makey that turned it into a piano. But, I think that with a lot of these things, you do a very short lesson about whatever the tool is. And after that, it's people figuring out what they want to do with it and coming up with their own applications.
All right.
Yeah. With my kids, when I use the makey with them, the main focus of the lesson is on programming. We use a program called Scratch, which is a great introduction to drag and drop programming for the kids. And the main focus is on creating the program in Scratch that can then be controlled by the makey. So the makey is like the marshmallow and whipped cream and cherry on top of the coding sundae that they've just made.
How about one of my favorite words for coding in Makerspaces? What is an Arduino, and how do you spell it?
Well, it's easy. It's spelled Arduino. So, duh. An Arduino is a tiny little microcontroller that allows you to attach programming to things like sensors and lights and servos and motors. And it is just one of a whole family of microcontrollers that are out there. We are trying to begin doing some microcontroller programming at 5th grade because we want students to be able to use these in STEM class in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I've got the task now of trying to get kids learning how to use these. And the good news is that TeacherCast has a curriculum called Project Ignite that will teach your students how to use online 3D design software and how to do physical programming and circuit building with Arduino.
That's pretty cool. Here's my next one. What's the TeacherCast?
TeacherCast. It's the guy who was with the Scarecrow and the Lion and Dorothy.
TinkerCAD is wonderful. TinkerCAD is a online 3D design environment. It's web-based. It links up to Google accounts very nicely. You can go in, take the tutorials, do the little lessons they have, and learn how to design in 3D very, very quickly and easily. Very user-friendly.
What is a Raspberry Pi? Anybody but
it
Sam
is
answer.
another in the family of microcomputers and microcontrollers.
Very delicious.
Very, very delicious, right? If you do it right. Anyway, and they are available in kits like the Kano, K-A-N-O kit, which I use after school with students as young as first grade. If they can read, they can get through these tutorials. But at the same time, it's an amazingly powerful tool for, full-grown adults prototyping real things in the real world.
So we're going to keep running the show until these hockey pucks are done here. So since I have you guys captive.
They're done.
No. If I was creating a STEM lab, let's just say hypothetically, and my superintendent said, go pick out a thing. Do we want to look into getting Chromebooks, iPads, Linux machines? What is the perfect device when doing this? And I know the word perfect is a hard one, but what is the device that we'd rather have? I mean, I was looking at We Do kits until I was told that they're not Chromebook ready, but now I'm being told that they are Chromebook ready. So what devices should we have? I mean, I think, Sam, you and I were talking about just going to get like $50 tablets from Amazon or something. What's out there?
Honestly, I think you should have a variety because there's so much out there, and some things run really well on Chromebooks. I love the Chromebooks. We use them almost every day. But there's also a lot of great software and hardware that only runs on a PC. There are things that tablets excel at, and I think if you're able to, having a couple of a variety of different types of devices is going to be a lot more useful than just having, a single device for, a single type of device for every student.
Jen, what do you think?
I totally agree with that because it really depends what we're doing. So we have a green screen, and there's some wonderful green screening apps and apps for doing, stop motion animation and stuff like that. And that is really something that tablets are better for. iPads in particular have some great options. I like Chromebooks because when you're using a Chromebook, you're using web accessible tools, which means that kids can go home and use them. So I try to do that whenever possible. But then there's things like video editing or other audio editing tools and such that require a software download. So you need a PC. So I agree, you need a variety of things, but it would really depend on what the tools are that you're trying to use to make that decision as to what you might have there first, because you can't always have a variety of things just because of budgets.
Sam, I know recently when you opened up your STEM lab there, you did a video that I'd like to ask you to put into our show notes and get us the link for that. But
Done.
If you were faced with a question from your uppers and they said, you're going to be building this awesome, awesome lab, what is the one thing you can't live without? And I'm talking like robots or duct tape or, what's that one thing that what's the cornerstone of the STEM education for you here?
As long as the kids are above 4th grade, it's glue guns. You can do anything with glue guns, but you're going to burn their little hands. So they got to be older than 4th grade because it's against the law to burn children younger than 4th grade, apparently.
Is there a release that parents have to sign for that? I'm serious about that one.
I would definitely make sure that no matter what, if you're going to use glue guns or soldering irons, the people who control your job know this ahead of time, and that you've researched what your local policies are about that, right? I work at a small independent school, and when I did it, one kid got burned pretty significantly, and they thought it was the coolest thing in the world, so the parents were okay with it. But seriously, don't go in saying, gosh, I hope no one gets burned. Go in saying children will get burned. Have burn ointment. Tell children before you start using glue guns and or soldering irons how to treat the burn immediately. And, just roll with it. Be like, it's okay with it, because that's what happens. I mean, when I make puppets with the kids, the hardest thing is figuring out what syllables I'm going to say when I'm trying to express the level of pain I'm in after I put my hand down in somebody else's hot glue.
So
But you know what? You find it.
you're saying basically the word third degree is never good on an accident report if your boss doesn't know what you're doing.
Well, it's never good, period. But you definitely want to make sure your boss knew that there was the possibility of burning before, that's like a surprise.
Jen, what about you? What was some of like the I must have this in these rooms when you're having those discussions?
As far as the tools that you think are most flexible, is that what you're saying, Jeff?
There are teachers out there going to be watching this that are doing STEM in a room, STEM on a cart. What's that one thing that you can't leave without?
I think if you're getting started, I think things like a Sphero or a Makey would be a go-to item to have, because they're so flexible, both at grade level, different grade levels, and also what you can do with them, and they're fairly inexpensive. So I think to try to use things that have a lot of different, they're not a one-trick pony, and those are tools that definitely do not fall into the one-trick pony category.
Meredith, have you ever needed to use the word first or third degree on an accident report?
I have not. I do not work in an independent school. I work in a public school, and they would have my head on a platter. So, and the union would walk away and act like they had never heard of my name before. So I would not use those things in my school, because I don't think that they would be okay with that.
Nice. Meredith, I'm gonna let you end on this one here. Other than your wonderful Pinterest board, which we're gonna put in our show notes, and the great stuff that you're doing, if a teacher is looking for that one resource to go learn things, have I made it obvious that I'm trying to build a STEM lab yet? Where are those great resources out there that we can go to for information? And please, let's get the links for those.
Oh gosh. Well, Tech for Teachers, for one. Pretty much everything I find useful goes on there. There are a lot of great STEM and Makerspace websites out there. There are excellent books. Worlds of Learning. Laura Fleming has put a wonderful book out on getting started in Makerspaces. The Makerspace Manifesto. There's so much stuff out there. Make Magazine is amazing with all of the different projects and activities and ideas that are in there. The Instructables website, I've recently gotten sucked into Instructables.com, because there are tons and tons of great projects out there, and because it's basically a crowdsourced how-to website, you can have the students come up with their own directions for Instructables and have them post their own Instructables up there on the site as well.
Guys, I want to say thank you. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm just sitting here watching the 3D printers go off. It's still really, really neat that this is happening.
They're mesmerizing.
Here. Yes,
right?
I've never, we're talking about doing, a podcast from inside of Minecraft, but I've never actually done a podcast from inside of a 3D printer. So this is kind of neat to be doing this here. Guys, I want to say thank you so much. The audience out here on our chat over at TeacherCast.tv has been absolutely amazing. I like the split screen now where you have me on one side and you have the 3D on the other stuff. But please don't let the end of the show stop here. We have a lot of great resources. Sam's going to be collecting all of these resources and making sure that they're in the show notes for us. And so, Meredith, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I feel completely schooled on all of this stuff. One last time, where can we learn about the great things that are happening in your area?
Techforteachers.com. That's where everything I do goes.
Nice. And where can we find you on Twitter?
Geeky Teach on Twitter.
Excellent. Jennifer, are you going to be presenting anywhere soon, or where can we find some of the great things that you're doing?
Yeah, I have a blog called teachingforward.net, and I'm on Twitter at Jen Judkins. Right now I'm doing local workshops, and I don't think there's anything in the next couple of months in terms of conferences, so it's a little quiet in that department, which is just fine.
And Sam, I know you were busy yesterday. Could you tell us what you were doing and what you were taking pictures of while we were all suffering through the slings and agony of Jonas?
I don't know if you're referring to the 4 rainbows I saw yesterday, and I only took 3 pictures of them. Or if you're talking about the 3D printing,
I was talking about the rainbows.
Yes. Well, you know,
on...
out here in California, it rained, and so there were rainbows, and then everything was okay because it was over. And we got to pretend that we're not all going to die from drought. Because you have to remember, while, you know, you may say, well, those guys in California, they don't get 2 feet of snow. We are all going to die.
Very, very cool. Sam, we'd love to see what some of these things look like. Maybe on next week's show we can show off what is going on with the finish of this. Next week we're going to be doing an interesting comparison on our show about iPads versus Chromebooks versus Surface tablets. So certainly come back next week, Sunday night at 7 o'clock. Check that out. And then the following week we're going to be off for the Super Bowl. And then the following week we're going to be off because they tell me that we need to spend time with our significant others, especially when they're currently running up and down the hallway after 2-year-olds. So we're going to be off for Valentine's Day, and then we'll come back on the 21st of there. So one show next week on the 31st, and then we'll be back on the 21st of February. Thank you guys so much for joining us. There's, of course, several great ways that you can find us. You can subscribe to this show and all of our shows over on TeacherCast.net/iTunes, and we are currently looking for some great topics to discuss in March and after. Please leave us a voicemail over at TeacherCast.net/voicemail or email us your suggestions at feedback@teachercast.net. We are going to be here live watching the Royal Rumble, knowing that there's some pretty cool stuff happening there. Until next time, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions for STEAM with your students.
Introducing PikaPack, a new social and emotional learning program designed for the class and the home. Discover original stories and Common Core aligned lesson plans to teach your class skills such as empathy, kindness, and respect. Access easy-to-use 20-minute lessons with ready-to-go templates. Send parents class updates, discussion questions, and digital stories to reinforce the learning at home and hear their feedback easily. View progress reports on Common Core standards practiced and activities completed at home. Sign up for a free account today at pikapack.com.